This year is going to be a big one for podcast, Kane,
Okay.
because there's all sorts of updates. Even the grandfather Apple Podcast is updating things,
You're
which is
joking.
unusual.
I thought they'd shut down before they'd actually change anything.
Yeah, literally, you'd think so. So I've got a few interesting things that are happening in the industry, specifically related to advertising for the most part, but going to get your opinions on them. So the first one is YouTube. Now, obviously, there's dynamic ads on YouTube all the time through AdSense, but YouTube are now bringing in dynamic and swappable ads that are creator placed. So essentially, creators now can treat YouTube like they can their audio platforms, where they can sell past episodes or dynamic spaces, different parts of the video. So they're taking that podcast approach that Spotify, Apple Podcasts use, which is great for brands and for creators.
Well, yesterday we had a meeting with somebody, a creator, who might have one of the hardest demographics to sell a sponsorship for, because it was like 50% UK, or like basically half of it was UK, half of it was US, half the audience was women, half the audience was men. It's like, how do you target that?
Yeah.
And, they're explaining that they were struggling to get sponsorship deals and whatnot. I was like, kind of makes sense. And I think we've found that when trying to, let's say it's something a bit more regulated, like a crypto company, or maybe just something really targeted, like business banking, for example. It's like, well, they can only operate in a certain country, which limits like how many yeses you're going to get if you're a creator looking for a brand deal. So I suppose it's not necessarily going to mean you're going to earn loads more per sponsor, but you'll probably get a lot more sponsors say yes because you can target certain regions.
Yeah, and then as an upsell, you can also sell your back catalogue. There are still older YouTube videos that will continue to get views, and you think if you've got a big Black Friday promotion or something along those lines, there's nothing stopping you doing a big push around that time, but across your whole catalogue on YouTube. So for creators, it means they've got more to sell. For brands, it means they can take advantage of a creator's full channel. So when they're telling you they get 100,000 monthly views, but actually you're only going to be on 20,000 of them because the rest is on old episodes.
Yeah,
that
can we just talk about that for a second? Do you know how fucking annoying that is? So, all right, if you're a creator listening to this, if a brand is asking how many views do you get, please don't give them the monthly to make yourself feel better, right? If somebody wants to or it could be a guest. If a guest is asking, how many downloads or views do you get if I'm going to come on your podcast? If a brand wants to sponsor, they want to know the per episode. How much are they actually going to get for the episode they are appearing on as a guest or they are paying for? Not your 600 previous episodes that are still getting views.
Every time we ask, isn't it? It's like, can you send us the views? It's like, I'll give you the monthly views. It's like, no, we need per episode. It's like, it's this much per week. It's like, that's not what I asked.
Yeah. One more time.
You're still not there.
Here's it really simply. Look at your last 8, add them up, divide them by 8.
Yeah. Gets you a good average, right? But the reason that's so important at the moment is because if someone's going to advertise on your next 4 episodes, then you can just go, okay, this much per episode times 4. However, with YouTube bringing this in, maybe you'll be able to go the other way and you can say, well, look, it's 100,000 monthly views and you're going to get in front of all of them because I'll run dynamic ads across the whole back catalogue. It means, that being able to place it at certain areas in the episode, it will be very trackable. I think the biggest issue podcast and YouTube advertising has faced over the years has always been tracking.
Yeah. So you got Podscribe on the audio, but it just doesn't work on YouTube.
Yeah, and you've got to think, if you've got a podcast which is 90% YouTube, it will assume the 10% audio stats are the same across the whole of the YouTube. So I wouldn't see it as particularly accurate if you're a show that's very video heavy. That is going to massively help for tracking. And the next one also helps massively for tracking. So the grandfather, Apple Podcasts, is bringing out essentially clickable links, which can be timestamped within episodes. So if at this point in the episode we start talking about a brand, the link could pop up on essentially the screen, so you just click straight through. But
are they doing video podcasts?
No.
Where does it click?
Well, no. So it would be like you open your phone and the podcast is playing. It'd be there. Okay. So you're not watching the video, but you can just open it and click on the link straight away. 1, it means there's less friction to get click through than go to the show notes. And 2, the tracking will be a lot stronger than relying on the brand to have a tracked link. So it means you'll be able to track the click-through rate as the creator, which is awesome.
Interesting.
The one caveat at the moment is actually all they're allowing it to link to is other Apple products. So Apple Music or like
Books.
Apple Books, whatever it is. Either way, all of Apple's other products is the only place it can link to at the moment. But it seems pretty inevitable that that's over time going to become a massive advertising asset.
Yes, all those podcasts sponsored by Apple Arcade.
Yeah. So, if you reference a book, then you can link the book. It's like, we know you're just testing this to see how it will work for advertising, but
that will be really powerful, because I think at the moment, the problem creators have when dealing in brand deals is a lot of the brands are shady. And they try and underplay how things have performed. It's like, yeah, we want to renew this campaign with you and we want to work with you. But, you know, it did okay, but not as good as we was expecting. It's like, yeah, but how many clicks did it get? How many signups did you get? And there's obviously no transparency in that, really. And you're reliant on the brand being forthcoming. Some are, some really aren't. So I guess that gives you a bit more power as a creator to be like, well, if I've got 10,000 people listening to this episode and I've had 300 of them click and you've had nobody sign up, it's like, maybe your landing page is terrible or your offer is terrible or whatever. It's like, clearly I'm driving interest, which then gives you, leverage to negotiate your next deal with.
Absolutely. Just going to quickly pause the episode there. Kane, I've got a quick question for you.
Shoot.
What's the most important thing when you're starting a podcast?
Be able to speak.
Fair. I was thinking more authority. If you are someone who's trying to position yourself as an authority in your niche and someone who is a thought leader, then it is so important that the quality of your content reflects that from a production point of view, not just what you're saying and talking about. And how do you do that?
I don't know. Tell me more. You're the thought leader.
Well, ideally you use a studio, but it's not always possible. So if you can't use a studio and you need to record virtually because the best guests in the world are the other side of the world, then you need to record virtually using riverside.fm. These blurry virtual interviews with dodgy Wi-Fi that cut out and only one track for your audio and video, they're not going to cut
Looks like it's filmed on a potato.
Exactly.
Grow up.
You need to do it properly, and riverside.fm is purpose built for podcast and video recording, and it has the best video and audio quality of any of the platforms.
You know what? I'm so glad you interrupted the podcast to let me know that.
Try it for free or even purchase a plan. Make sure you do it through that link though, because that way we get paid and we can continue doing really fancy production like putting QR codes on the screen.
I think you smashed that.
Thanks, mate. I tried really hard.
Episode.
The other thing they're bringing in as part of it is auto-generated chapters, kind of like YouTube.
Good. This is great.
Yeah, that'll help for the whole user experience.
Chapters are an underrated growth hack, because have you seen on YouTube when somebody, if you Google something, if that is covered somewhere in that episode, that chapter specifically is what surfaces on Google. So, for example, if somebody's Googling like, tell me everything about YouTube dynamic ads, it's like that 3-minute segment where we're just speaking about that, like, that would appear at the top of Google. If that then happens for Apple and Spotify as well, because especially on YouTube, it's a little bit easier because you can sort of scrub through it and you can see the video, and sometimes you can see like where it is. Like, for example, if I'm looking for an ad read or I'm looking for, I don't know, the bit where they cry or whatever it is, it's like you can sort of scrub through and see based on what's on screen, whereas on audio you can't. Like, you actually just have to listen to it to try and get to a certain bit. That's a great feature.
Spotify are doing a similar thing. They're launching interactive call to action cards in podcasts via its streaming ad insertion technology. While the ad plays, users see a visual that they can tap to visit a website or download an app or whatever it is. So pop-ups, the same concept essentially for Spotify. Obviously they've got video too, making it even more powerful, but even less friction to click through to an ad, to a brand, whatever it is, and a visual element to it as well. So both Apple and Spotify are really pushing the advertising angle, although Apple obviously just for their products for now.
Of course. And it makes sense for Spotify why they're releasing all these features. Like, now they're such a huge ad network. They obviously want to make sure. I don't know if you've seen, I've been hit with a load of Facebook ads from Spotify about, are you a brand who wants to advertise on podcasts, like book a demo call? So they're like doing free demo calls to show people how to optimize their Spotify ads.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes sense because that's where all of the money is. If you look at any social media channel, they are just an ad network. Spotify's the same thing. Like, there's clearly not a lot of money in music, so like the royalties. So there's a lot of money in podcasting. So they're gonna release any and all features they possibly can to make advertising better. The better it converts, the more they spend, the more money they make. So it's great for their business, but also it's good for creators.
100%. Now, can you guess the only country in which this has been released?
I'm going to... So it's only been released in one country. I'm going to guess the US.
Incorrect.
Really?
It's a bit of a... It's not massively rogue, but it wouldn't be your first choice.
Well, it clearly wasn't.
Or probably your second or third.
Where is it?
I'd say it would be your fourth choice. Australia.
Really?
Yeah. So they've released it in Australia as essentially a test. But I can imagine that will be going much wider than Australia very soon. But yeah, like you said, it's their whole business model is the advertising when it comes to podcasting. Acast are the same. Acast run ads promoting Acast advertising. I've heard quite a few times. So anything Spotify can do to make it easier for ads to convert, so brands get more money, so they spend more money with Spotify, right? It's obvious. All of this, by the way, is helping massively with the one thing that podcasting struggled with, which is advertising on podcasts being performance focused. So many brands now will still argue the point. It's only about brand awareness and brand uplift. Like, it's not trackable enough. It's not clear enough. It's not performance marketing. And I guess me and you have tried to push that side of actually it can be performance marketing, but it's still not easy. You still need to have track links, which the brand needs to provide. You need to have an exclusive offer. You need to have a certain creative with the ad read and target in a certain way. But all of these things are making it easier. The dynamic ads on YouTube will make it easier to do more campaigns across the whole of someone's channel and make the most of all of their reach. But the biggest things is Apple and Spotify making it way easier to, one, click through, but two, therefore track actual results. And the dynamic ads on YouTube as well make it so much easier for tracking. Podcast has always struggled with tracking results when it comes to advertising, and these steps are going to make it so much easier. And they're therefore more viable for brands to go, actually, we can put some performance budget into this, not just brand awareness.
Right, let's see what brands were built through podcast advertising, because there have been some around years, way before any of this. Oh yeah, there's loads. Think BetterHelp's a great one. Magic Spoon, HelloFresh, Dollar Shave Club, Athletic Greens like AG1.
Oh yeah.
You know, Squarespace, every VPN company you like. Fucking, there's loads that have basically, like BetterHelp was spending $7 million a month in podcast advertising for years.
I can promise you that's not just for brand uplift.
No, it's definitely not.
There has to be a conversion element behind that. And
it makes sense though, because a lot of these things are, they tend to be trust-based. I think we've found anyone who needs trust, which is why it works like for financial institutions. Like people are a bit worried where they're putting the money. So whether it's like an investment firm, like or a
bank
crypto exchange, bank, insurance, etc. So those work. Also, anything that's quite expensive, where you need one, a more lucrative audience, but you probably need a bit more touch points with them. And then one that you always say is a need.
yeah, something you need rather than want. Insurance is a great example. So like finance brands, anything. Banking is a great one. Things that it's not, you don't get excited about, but it's like, I need it. So if I can use one that's suggested, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then the other side of it is the biggest thing we're noticing, we should probably do a whole episode on this, is how ads on podcasts and YouTube aren't just being used for the original ad, but actually UGC content now is huge. So many brands are making the most of their campaigns by using that same content to put budget behind, and it's outperforming everybody's meta ads. So that's going to continue throughout this year to grow. And I think to the point it will then flip and be like, okay, we need to do something that isn't UGC now because everybody's doing UGC. But as it stands, any sort of UGC content is massive. So you as a brand, if you can go to a creator and get the rights to use that footage as well, and if they do a good ad read, that can be a game changer for your like most performance focused marketing through meta ads or whatever it is. Right, final one. Spotify Studios have partnered up with Netflix, and Netflix video podcasts are going to be coming throughout this year. So the most interesting thing here is they're going to be exclusive, so they cannot be posted to YouTube. However, the clips can still be posted to YouTube. But yeah, there's no direct information on advertising for this, but obviously if you're opening up a whole new platform, video focused platform, to podcasts, wanting to get in the game, there's going to be even more opportunity for these creators to monetize, and even more opportunities for brands.
So is Netflix paying them for this, or are they sort of paying in exposure like a Friday night pub singer?
So what's happening? Netflix has entered a partnership with Spotify to bring a curated slate of video podcasts from Spotify Studios onto the Netflix platform. These shows will appear on Netflix and Spotify, and Netflix may also develop original video podcasts, Netflix originals, but podcast version. So obviously that means you're going to see a lot more podcasts on the big TV in the living room, like different. Well, people do listen and watch YouTube on the big TV now, but Netflix is more of a let's sit down and watch it on the TV kind of platform. So that'll be interesting. It's going to start overlapping with TV shows. So podcasts and TV content kind of coming into one, making it even more mainstream. I think Netflix is about as mainstream as you can possibly get at this point. So yeah, and then the interesting thing is that they're making it exclusive too. So if you're on Netflix, you can't be on YouTube. And I'm very, very curious as to how that lands.
Can you have your sponsor ad read in it? Does it say?
Yeah, it doesn't say anything specific, but yeah, I can imagine so. You can, if you've got an integrated partnership, it doesn't seem like there's any reason you wouldn't be able to.
Fair enough.
The big target is pushing podcasts to new audiences. Like the people that watch Netflix might not be people who typically listen to podcasts, but then there's a whole new section. It might be where they get introduced to podcasts, and just growing that from Netflix's point of view, growing the whole, it's another string to their bow. But I think for the industry as a whole, it's good because it's just going to get podcasts in front of more people that aren't podcast listeners maybe typically, but everything is pushing podcasts to the mainstream by the sounds of it. Even the advertising approach is becoming more mainstream, which is only going to be a good thing.
All right.
But I think that is just about it, really. But I think those 4 points clearly state the intention of podcasting as a whole this year, which is let's make it more mainstream, let's make it easier for people to spend money on, and let's fix all the problems there is, because podcasting is not something to be trialed with. It's going to be a very, very big element of advertising budgets, content plans. Podcasting's here to stick around. It's still early days.
If you're trying to make money into podcasting or any sort of content right now, how are you going about that? This whole episode's been around advertising, but do you still think it's the best way to make money through podcasting or any sort of content?
No. I think despite the fact our entire business is based on advertising and sponsorship, is not the best way to make money through podcasts. It'll always make you more money when you use it to sell your own stuff, right? And to leverage your own brand. And there's always more money to be made indirectly marketing. But if you can grow an audience, the tools are now there in place across every channel to monetize it in multiple ways, right?
So on that, would you pay for your podcast to be on Netflix? If you're trying to sell you, it's sort of like a traditional funnel might be, you get a click magnet, you run Facebook ads to it, you capture that, you call them or email them, you sell them a product. Your podcast is your click magnet, your Netflix is your Facebook ads, and then whatever your product is on the podcast. Like, is that something you would invest in?
I think you'd have to see how it converts first before jumping on something like that. Because if for every 1,000 listeners, you usually get X amount click-through rate, because you treat it the same as advertising, right? It's just you're advertising your own thing. Like the Spotify and the Apple links is great whether you got a sponsor or not, because if you're pitching your own stuff, or you're even better, you don't need to pitch your own stuff, but if you're referencing it and you can have a pop-up come on screen when you're talking about it, like you don't even need to sell it, but the call to action is there in front of people in case they're curious about what you're talking about. So I think it's going to be massive, those two bits especially, the Spotify and Apple added the clickable links for whatever you've got to sell, whether it's a sponsor stuff or your own stuff.
Yeah.
So I think seeing how that lands would be way more sensible before jumping on to something like paying Netflix to be part of it, because what I don't imagine Netflix to convert as well as YouTube or audio will, just because I imagine Netflix on the TV, I imagine it more background noise, I imagine it more less conscious watching, if you like, and also more action needs to be taken to actually click through to a website, right? Because if it's on your TV screen, it's not like it's on your phone and you can just click the button.
Have you seen what most creators do? So You watch Car Wow, or you've
I've seen it, yeah.
So it's one of the only car channels I really watch, and clearly they can see in their YouTube analytics that they've got a huge portion of people that watch it on TV, because it obviously tells you on your YouTube studio. So when they have a call to action, like, yes, they have the URL pop up, like go to carwow.com, but they have a QR code.
Smart.
So if you're sat on your
More
sofa, phone in your hand, actually, it's probably going to convert better than an audio podcast when someone's driving or
No,
walking.
that is very true.
And it's like scan, done.
No, that's a very good point. Very good point.
Up the Netflix.
Netflix, well, maybe it'll be the one. I mean, like I said, the good thing about the audio platforms now bringing in clickable links is all of a sudden every platform is making it easier for you to click through to purchase or whatever it is that's being advertised. But whether you've got sponsors or you've got 100 listeners and you're trying to sell your own stuff, it's good news for you as a creator.
Wow, exciting. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Adios.